Hi everybody. Apparently I have slides. This is good. Whether I can use them is a different matter. Toys R Us. This is a fantastic image that I found when looking about the subject of kids using technology. Apparently this little girl is trying to get her pad to facially recognize her doll, to kind of log into her pad or something. Let's see. So, yeah, my name's Chris Pinchen. I'm a kind of freelance worker, founder of the privacy agency. Okay, and I want to tell you a story. So, all good stories begin once upon a time. So, throughout time, kids have always imagined their toys coming to life, their toys talking to them. We have very famous stories that I'm sure you all know and you've seen before. And in fact, as soon as people could begin to construct toys that moved, they did. So this is a mechanical monk. And you can see a very, very, very complex toy there. Toys became mechanized as soon as possible. This is one of the scariest toys I saw. I actually have a doll phobia, so doing this presentation was not too good for me, but I'm learning. A mechanical duck, you can see inside. Most of the women in mechanical toys seem to be doing housework and things like that, so things don't seem to change too much. Of course, cats, because it's the internet. A wind-up Pinocchio. This was me when I was a kid. This was my favorite toy. And this is actually a bear that is mechanical, and you could switch it on by moving its ear. Okay? And of course, as soon as we could make them, we began to make robots and more robots. And as I said, we've always had this story, this idea about toys coming alive. Now, this is the traditional image of toys coming alive, but I like to think that when toys come alive, actually they spend their nights playing poker, and a far more interesting thing. But as I say, we imagined that toys could rescue, for example, us as children. And now we've come to this. This is my favorite reinterpretation of a fairy story. This is actually painting in San Francisco, of course. Where else could it be? And the interesting thing is we've reached this position where we have those toys. We have living, moving toys that we can talk to, that we can interact with. And we have these toys for a couple of reasons. Both of them are technological. One is that we now have the ability to robustly, theoretically, I don't know what will happen with Dino there, that we can theoretically connect our toys to the internet, okay? And the second reason is something called Moore's Law, and Moore's Law is that every year storage gets more powerful and smaller. And so we can now put things inside toys and we can control them with Wi-Fi. So I'd just like to join the dots here about how we've got there. So we all know about this. And I want to tell you about a thing called, do you know WannaCry? Anybody here know this? Yeah, a couple of people. So a few months back, this was on the internet, there was a very big problem on the internet that computers around the world were taken over by something which was demanding a ransom. Okay, your computer was attacked, it was blocked, and you had to pay a ransom to get it working again. And this affected things all over the world. It affected the National Health Service in the UK, for example. Hospitals were taken offline. Ambulances couldn't be dispatched. Many, many companies were also affected by this. My slides are not working. And this is actually spreading in a university. You can see at the top that some of the computers are already infected, and all of the computers are getting infected and infected as they open. And the problem is that, as this guy said in a tweet, in a very small period of time, we've taken a system, the internet, which was built to resist nuclear destruction, and we've made it vulnerable to toasters. Toasters, you know, when you toast your bread in the morning, they now have Wi-Fi. They now are being attached to the internet. I don't really care if hackers take over my toaster, but you will care about your toaster being taken over when it gives access to your bank account. This, a few months ago, seemed crazy, but recently a casino in the United States was attacked through a smart fish tank. Okay? It had a fish tank in the casino with all the fish swimming around, and the fish tank was connected to the internet.
So it was a literal fishing?
It was literal fishing. The fishing really worked, and it extracted gigabytes of data to Finland. No idea why. But this is where we're at. This is the situation that we're in. And as Glyn Moody said, I have seen the future of the internet. It is millions of rogue fridges will make it impossible. Because as you attach everything to the internet, your kettle, for example, your things are being connected to the internet, and then what is happening is people are taking over your devices. They're creating something called a botnet. If you know what a botnet is, a botnet is when a bunch of devices, traditionally, it was computers, were taken over and used by another person to form a big network, and that network could be used to attack things. And now, what is happening is that it's your things. It's all of the things we have in our homes, the Internet of Things devices. And previously to this, there was another attack. It was called Mirai, and this was huge. It was a huge attack. It was the biggest botnet ever in the history at that time. And it was 1.5 million they were connected objects, but most of them were cameras, okay? They were surveillance cameras. And they were surveillance cameras for a very good reason. Nobody ever changes the password when they first install any device. Some of these cameras you can't change the password on. And the other good thing about cameras connected to the internet is they are made to move a lot of data. Yeah, because video uses a lot of data. So if you take over a camera, you can move a lot of data. How does this work? As you can see here, a guy bought a camera, connected it to the internet, and it was infected in 98 seconds. Okay? So just a simple camera, he bought off Amazon, connected it to the internet, and after 98 seconds it was already infected. And then all sorts of things can be done. You can cut heat to apartments, for example. And this is a big problem, because the devices that we're connecting to the internet, as we see here, it leaks the password, yes. It leaks the Wi-Fi password, yes. It can be spoofed, yes. Ding, we have an Internet of Shit winner. Internet of Shit is an English term for the Internet of Things, because the Internet of Things is shit. It's very, very bad. It's not very well connected, and it's certainly not protected. What happens? This is what happens. Your toys, your toasters, your cameras can be used to take down the internet for an entire country. In the case of Liberia, okay? And there was a map, a live map of how this was happening, and you could detect it. Now, if anybody in the room has anything at home that is connected to the internet, I recommend that you go to that page when you get home, and you check. If you go to that page, iotscanner.bulgard.com, you can check to see if your toaster or your kettle or your refrigerator or your connected dinosaur is helping to spread malware over the internet. Okay? Very simple check. And if it is, try and change it. However, you might have a problem, because as I said, a lot of those devices, they're very cheaply made. They're just thrown out very quickly. They're put to market very quickly, and they don't have any security built in, and often you can't even change it. However, we have a vigilante hacker that is fighting back. There's a hacker that is fighting back and wrote something to also spread over the internet to take off the other virus. Crazy things happen in the world. We're also in the world where you get a phishing attack on Google Docs. Was a very interesting thing. You got a message on your Google Docs and it said to add this person, and then it redirected you to this. And once you redirected, it just took everybody in your address book and sent the same message to them. Chris says, please open this document. As you opened it, it then infected your computer and everybody it sent the same message on. Okay, anybody here know Amazon Alexa, Amazon Echo? Anybody have one of these devices? No? Okay, now these devices are spreading. It's becoming more and more typical to have this kind of device at home. What this is like what's called a home assist. It's like a home assistant, yeah? It's like Siri in your iPhone. You can speak to it, hello Siri, what's the weather like in Warsaw today? It will tell you the weather. There was a little girl in the United States that went to her parents and she said to her parents, can I have a new doll's house? And her parents, being horrible, typical parents, said, it's not Christmas, it's not your birthday, so no. And so the little girl said, hey Siri, not Siri, hey Alexa, buy me the doll's house. Now, Alexa was connected to her parents' Amazon account, which is connected to their bank account or their card. So when Alexa heard these words, Alexa bought the item. Okay? Gets stranger. A couple of weeks later, on the TV news, the guy on the TV news is explaining the story. And he says, hey, did you hear about the little girl? Yes, what happened? The girl said, hey, Alexa, buy me this. So what happened when the guy on the TV said, hey, Alexa, buy me the doll's house? Everybody that had an Alexa in their house and it was connected responded. Okay. Now I have no more slides. Yes, I do. And the next step of the Alexa is this. It's to have a camera on the Alexa. And the great thing is you get up in the morning and you look at Alexa and say, hey, Alexa, do I look cool today? Am I correctly dressed to present at a conference in Warsaw? And of course, it looks at me and says, yes, Chris, you look fantastic. Or it says, no, you don't. Your T-shirt is terrible. Why are you wearing that hacker T-shirt? Why don't you buy this T-shirt and wear it instead? Okay? Or I could connect to my friends. I say, hey, Anna, is this cool? Is this shirt good for the conference today? And Anna can say yes or no. Okay? So this is crazy, but even more. Fridges and washing machines can be used in murder to solve murders. There was a murder that took place in a house in the United States, and there was an Alexa in the house, an Amazon Echo. And the police went to the guy, to Amazon, and they said, we want the information that this device records. We want to listen to what happened in the house when the murder took place. And Amazon said, no, we will not give you that data. We must protect our client. Okay? And amazingly, I was shocked. And later, the person that was accused of murder actually gave Amazon permission to give that data, to use that data, because this thing is recording. Yeah? All of these devices, the only way they can know if you say, hey Siri, is because they are listening for those words. So they're always listening. Your microphone in your phone, in one of these devices, is always switched on. It's always listening. Okay? And that's how it begins to work. So, does anybody know what a Whopper is? Anybody know Burger King? Okay, yeah. So, Burger King are very intelligent, and they do a TV commercial. I can't show it because it's not going to work. You can look it up on the internet. The guy on the commercial is in a restaurant of Burger King, and he says, I don't have enough time to tell you today how fantastic the Whopper is, but one moment. Hey, Google, what's a Whopper? And then people that had a Google Home device in their houses, the device switched on and explained that a Whopper is a fantastic burger from Burger King. And it doesn't stop there. Last week, South Park, you know South Park, the TV show, they actually used this in the show. They had a great segment where one of the characters says to his Alexa, "Hey Alexa, speak to Siri, speak to Google Home," and say, I can't remember what it said, but it was some pretty disgusting stuff. Look for it on YouTube, it's fantastic. It's a great video, basically. And everybody at home that had the device switched on and repeated what he said, which was something about, you've got a hairy butt, you've got a hairy ass, etc., etc. So this is going to happen more and more often. Now, what happens when you've got your connected toy and the company does something like this? Hey, why don't you buy me a Whopper? Yeah. And it gets better, because of course, there are not just kids' toys, there are toys which may be very interesting for teenagers. The world's first hacking app for sex toys. Take remote control of anyone's erotic pleasure device without them knowing. By a company called FlexiFlesh. This was actually an April Fool's joke. But it's an April Fool's joke from a company called FlexiSpy. And what FlexiSpy does is, I suspect that my wife is having an affair. So I infect her telephone with FlexiSpy spyware, and everything that happens on her phone, I can then see. I can listen to her. I can switch on the microphone. I can track her through the GPS. I can see the messages she sends. And they market this. The marketing is fantastic. There was a great advertisement from one of these companies which said, "My wife is alive today because I installed spyware on her telephone. She had a car accident and I knew where she was because I was tracking her." Fantastic. Fortunately, there's a crazy hacker guy that decided to write some code that can actually remove this. What next? In Oslo, a pizza restaurant that does facial recognition on you. As you go past and you look at their advertisement, the advertisement analyzes you. It looks at you, and if you're a guy, it goes, "Hey, big fat English guy, have a really big fat pizza." But if you're a woman, it suggests you have a salad. But it also looks at your emotions. It looks at your emotional state. It looks at how old you are. It looks at your emotions, and then it suggests different food for you. And of course, we are everything we are using now is microphones are connected all the time. And now we're getting to the world where everything is using biometrics. Now, this guy, he knows something about biometrics. Look at his hands. Look how he is picking up that phone. He is not leaving fingerprints on the phone. And I put this one in because it was a tragic thing I saw on Twitter. It said, "My kid just built a city." And of course, he built a surveillance camera into the city, because all cities have surveillance cameras. So the surveillance world is getting into our toys all the time. Some quick and dirty things. Does anybody know Hello Barbie? Hello Barbie is the internet-connected Barbie doll. She looks like that inside. And you talk to her, and when you talk to her, everything you say is uploaded onto a server, and nobody knows what happens with the data. You tell her all your secret things, and it's kept on a server somewhere for third-party use. Okay. Cloud Pets. Does anybody remember Cloud Pets recently? Here's a nice little toy. You give it to your kid. You connect it to the internet. It records what your kid is saying, and it keeps them in an unprotected database where over 2 million voice messages were exposed. But not even better than that. You can connect to the cloud pet remotely, and you can get the cloud pet to say what you want. You can hack it over Bluetooth. So this guy did. He hacked it over Bluetooth. And he can make it say whatever he wants. So imagine you give the kid to your toy, and then some guy sitting outside the house hacks it over Bluetooth and says, "Hey, little boy, do you want some sweets?" or et cetera, et cetera. After this news came out, they were sold very cheaply in a like $1 store. So that's good news. And a kid actually did this. An 11-year-old kid at a hacker conference. He hacked over using one of these toys. Okay. We probably know in Germany, Kayla, a doll, was ordered to be destroyed because, again, it was recording. It could record conversations that your children were having with the object. And then, of course, we get the great example of the internet-connected vibrator, which was sending user data back to the company until a customer found out about this, and she sued the toy maker. And of course, then there's my favorite, Icon, the internet-connected condom, which has a social network, which tells you velocity and thrust and all sorts of things. Now, many people told me, nobody will use that. And I said, you do not know adolescent boys. Adolescent boys will love to have a device by which they can say to the prospective partner, "Hey, have you seen my statistics? Don't go with that, dude. Look at my stats." Okay, so, and of course they said the data will be anonymized. What's in the future? Bruce Schneier, a very important cryptographer, says the internet era of fun and games is over. This is the future. This is all of your objects in your house delivering ransomware to you, okay? Saying that if you don't pay them, if you don't do this, your devices won't work, or they will send emails to everybody, or they will send... You can look this up. Go to the Internet of Ransomware Things. It's a fantastic thing. You must study it. Okay? So, what can we do? We say, dance like your microwave isn't watching. It's a typical hacker thing. Dance like your Barbie doll is watching instead, because it probably is. And we're in this situation where you go to a person's house and you have to say, "Hey, Alexa, order me this," to discover if Alexa or something is listening. Because how are you going to know? You're not going to know if your toys or anything are connected to the internet. But all of these new toys, every day, more toys, more connectivity, more microphones, more spying, more data being sent to third-party companies that we don't know what they do with it. And this is where we are with toys. And also, if the company that makes your toy closes down or decides to discontinue it, your toy no longer functions, okay? You've just got an object which was cool at the time, but now no longer functions. And there was a very famous case recently of a $400 juice presser in the United States. $400 for a juice presser. The company has closed down. Your juice presser no longer works because it was an internet-connected device. And they all lived happily ever after. Thank you.